Welcome to There Is a Method to the Madness. My name is Rob Maxwell, and I'm an exercise physiologist and personal trainer. I'm the owner of Maxwell's Fitness Programs, and I've been in business for the past 25 years. So I had a question/statement from a client on Facebook. We will call her Casey. She said, basically, talk a little bit more about the misunderstanding of strength training, especially when it comes into regards with women. And, I think that's a great topic, and I want to expand on that a little bit and talk about not just what it means for women and the misunderstandings involved, but also what it means for men as well. Because, in this podcast, The Method to the Madness, I like to break down what's the truth, what we know, what's scientifically measured versus what people think, and then pass on to later generations and put all these, BS workouts and stuff on Instagram trying to appeal to people who believe the myths, okay? So let's talk about them, and then you'll better understand what I'm talking about. I'm going to begin with two relatively funny stories, that may, may make you laugh, or you may think it's a little offensive, but in any event, I think it gets the point across great, and I'll try to explain them. So to protect the names involved from past people I know, I'm going to make up different names. So in this case, we're going to call the guy Larry. Larry was a guy that I knew back in my teens and early 20s when I was working out down in a little closet of a gym down in New Smyrna Beach, and it was clearly a musclehead style facility. It was really old. This was in the 80s, and he was a big cheese in town. He was a big dude, a lot of muscles. Very strong, popular kind of a guy. We all knew he took steroids, and that's not good, obviously. I mean, at least in my opinion, not good for health anyway. So he kind of like filled in at the gym down there, basically like would help out the guy who owned it, and would get a membership, which was probably dirt cheap anyway back in those days, but he was around and he'd help out. So anyway, one day I was in there working out with my buddy, and I was in the bodybuilding. I was doing things naturally, thankfully, and so I was there a lot, and I knew him well, and he had basically respected me and whatever. I never had a problem with this guy, but a lady comes in to work out, and she was a beautician at a place really, really close to the gym. And so she kind of pops her head in, and she says, to him, unfortunately, he was the guy working, like, what's the luck for this poor thing, and she says, I want to get a membership here and maybe even pay for some instruction, but I don't want to get big. And me and my workout partner look at each other, and we're like, oh shit, oh no, how is he going to handle this? Because this guy was known to be, a little bit full of roid rage, and he would, definitely fly off the handle for various reasons, and that was definitely one to trigger him. And it did. So he flies off the handle, and I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember his exact words, but basically what he said was this: look, lady, people like me spend a ton of money on steroids and other forms of eating plans and nutrition, and we bust our ass in the gym 3 hours a day, every day, and we do this monthly just to gain a little bit of muscle to put us over the top. Yet you are so arrogant to think that if you just start working out a few times a week on a normal diet or whatever, that you have to fear bulking up. And it's bulking up that we pay tons of money for illegal anabolic steroids to do. he continued to rant, and he was not too afraid of the consequences of that, because in a way he kind of enjoyed the attention of everybody laughing. All right. So before I explain that a little bit further and move on to my next story, which is the polar opposite, because I want to get both views, let me explain that, of course, taking steroids is wrong. But his point was that if it was so easy, why would genetically gifted people, because that's what it's going to come down to. You have to have the genetics one way or the other to have muscle mass, but genetically gifted people then spend more money and also risk going to jail, taking things to get a little bit bigger. As crazy as his point sounded at the time, well, his point didn't sound crazy at all, actually, because I knew enough about science and the body then to know that what he was saying was ultimately true. It's just why he was saying it to this person who clearly, really just went along with what the myth was, and she was just the messenger, and you're obviously not going to change people's perceptions by screaming at a hairstylist or anybody else. So granted, the delivery system was really flawed and crazy, but so was he. But he was dead right. And I held on to that story, not because I'm, glorifying the good old days of being funny, but because there is so much truth in it. And I'll get back to that in a little bit, but let's move on to story 2. Story 2, I'm going to call the guy Larry. Larry. Did I just call the other guy Larry? All right. I'm going to call this one Mike. Okay? I only say this because you never know. I mean, this is a small area I live in Volusia County, and, somebody might go, oh, I know who he's talking about. I'm just going to try to disguise it the best I can. Anyway, he was a buddy of mine, and he worked out with me, and when we attended Daytona State together before I went to UCF, and at that time it was DBCC, and he was a good buddy. I mean, we did a lot together. We worked out, we played basketball, we went to school, we hung out. I really liked him, and at this point I was still not overly in tune with the scientific part of working out. I knew some things, but I didn't know everything. I still don't know everything, but this poor guy, caught the abuse of our training methodologies. So he was a pure ectomorph, and that's a type of body type that's very thin bone, tall, skinny, essentially. And there's mesomorphs, ectomorphs, and endomorphs, and he was purely an ectomorph, which is a tall, skinny guy. And like a lot of guys in the 80s and 90s, and I imagine still today, they wanted to be big. So the polar opposite of the lady who came in, the beautician, and got screamed at, like she didn't want to, quote, bulk up. Well, he wanted to bulk up. He was tired of being skinny. And I was, medium at the time. I mean, bigger definitely compared to him, and not as big as the steroid guy. And even if I took something, I wouldn't have been, because, genetics are genetics, and that's kind of the point. But he didn't want to be that way, but I tell you what, I was strong, and so were a lot of the people we worked out with. So he worked out in our circles, and our belief was, if we just pound this guy into the ground and make him eat, he's going to grow. So, we would, encourage him and spot him to do ridiculous amount of weights, almost weights we were doing, in comparison, we were squatting, 300 something pounds for reps and stuff like that. And I don't think we quite made him do that. But when I say made, I mean, he was just this, gullible, do what you want, make me big kind of a guy. But he was definitely doing more weights than he can handle in good form. And, we're pushing him, we're trying to help him. We really, really were trying to help him because we believed that it was a matter of effort and, training right. And we thought that, if he just trained like us, he would grow like us, and that's what he wanted. And, and he damn sure had a great work ethic. I mean, this guy, you can pound him into the ground and he's just going to get up and say, when's the next set? Thankfully, he never got hurt. The only thing that ever got hurt was his ego, because after about, 3-4 months, nothing changed. He was still skinny and lanky. And did he get stronger? Absolutely. He got a little stronger. But he wasn't getting bigger, which was his goal. Okay. So, did we back off? Not really. I mean, he continued to work out and stuff, but, it just dawned on him, that it's not really in the cards for him to get big. And today we would call that a hard gainer. We call that a hard gainer. It means it's an ectomorphic body type that really isn't going to show that much difference in their amount of muscle mass, okay? So you actually, physiologically speaking, would do the polar opposite with somebody like him than what we did, which would be keep the intensity fairly high, but definitely not overdo the volume. And we don't want to push the intensity so high because he's already dealing with recovery issues. So ectomorphs tend to not recover very well. They tend to need very limited training, a lot of rest, and a lot of food. They're still not going to grow very big, but that's how they would be optimal. And that's really what I think we are all striving for, is to be optimal. All right. So with those two polar opposite stories, I hope they send the message I'm going to explain and pound it into the ground. Genetics decide what type of build that you have, whether you're man or woman, okay? We as trainers deal with this far more on the female side than we do the male side. Although some people in endurance sports, some males in endurance sports that want to keep their body weight down, may have some of those fears and misconceptions about weight training as some women do. They might say, I've got to race at a certain weight. I don't want to gain bulk. It's like, well, okay. But you're a marathon runner, and I don't think you have to worry about it. It's not going to happen, okay? So our amount of muscle mass is determined by genetic predispositions. The first one I already stated is, what type of body type are you? Are you a mesomorph, an endomorph, or an ectomorph, okay? One way to kind of figure it out is to take your middle finger and thumb and put it around your wrist. If you can overlap, you're more of an ectomorph. If it meets in the middle, you're more of a mesomorph. If it doesn't meet, you're more of an endomorph. Endomorphs tend to carry more body fat. They tend to be thicker boned. They tend to struggle with weight more. Mesomorphs tend to be more muscular. They're more like your linebackers, your bodybuilders, your football players, your wide receivers, your bigger centers in basketball. Ectomorphs are tall and thin. They tend to be more your distance runners. Of course, well, I shouldn't say nobody's a perfect one, but it's rare to have a perfect one. We all tend to have, where we lean. I tend to be more meso-ecto, so I tend to be more muscular, but also more on the thin side than the heavy side, so more like meso-ecto. There's a lot of endo-mesos in the NFL that play on the line, so, nobody's perfect body type. The next thing would be the amount of natural hormones that your body has genetically. If you tend to have higher levels of testosterone, you're going to gain more muscle. The reason why people take steroids, anabolic steroids, is because that does raise the testosterone levels no matter what kind they take. That's what it does. It raises the resting testosterone levels, because when you're exercising, you're actually releasing testosterone. So it's not the active testosterone that gets raised when people take steroids, it's the resting levels. But the other genetic components still need to be there, which is, again, one is the body type, I already explained, and then we're talking about the hormonal levels now, okay? So that's one. You need to have more natural testosterone. How do you know? Well, did you know those guys in junior high school that had beards? High level of testosterone. They were probably more advanced and played football and, did more power type sports because they were a little bit more mature and older technically than their younger counterparts, so they're going to be better. Now we know the downside to that. As they age, they have less testosterone. So, it's neither here nor there. A next component is muscle belly length. Okay, our muscle bellies are pretty much set, how long they're going to be. If you have long muscle bellies and short tendons, that means that the muscle can fill up. If you have long tendons and short muscles, that means that the muscle bellies really can't fill up. A good way to know is to flex your bicep, look down at the crease of your arm and see just how far that bicep starts from the crease of your elbow. Like if it starts almost immediately, you have longer muscle bellies. They can fill up. Now, personally, I have longer muscle bellies. That means that they can fill up. If you have longer tendons and short muscles, then they really can't fill up. And this is a huge part of the genetic factor. This is like this and body type are the two most important things. So you don't have to worry about your muscles getting bulkier if you have long tendons and short muscles. Again, you don't know until you really kind of see the finished product. But by the time you're 18, 19, 20 years old, you know what kind of body type you have. So it's not just going to like change because you go to the gym. That's, I hate to say it to you like this, but it's silly. It's really just not very advanced thinking. It's not scientific thinking. It's pretty naive thinking to think that. So that's a biggie. And then the fourth component is, what type muscle fiber are you? I mean, we're born with what type we're going to be, either fast twitch or slow twitch. Now, the majority of people are half and half. Well, the half and halfers don't have to worry about getting very muscular. It's more the people that are 80% fast twitch and 20% slow twitch that really are going to get more powerful, stronger, and bigger. Okay, so your linebackers in football, your running backs, wide receivers in football are going to be more explosive and have more fast twitch muscle fiber. That's the muscle that's fast and grows and is strong. And then slow twitch muscle fiber is built for endurance. So again, that's going to kind of go right along with the ectomorph, the person who is tall and thin and can, run marathons and things like that. So that's the other thing. So basically, people are like, well, he got big, taking steroids. And that's not true. I mean, regardless of who they're talking about. Did the illegal whatever drugs he took add to his size? Yes. But he would have been big no matter what. He would have been big if he just cut lawns and never at all even lifted weights. That's just the body type of somebody who, again, is fast twitch muscle fiber, has long muscle bellies, has a high natural level of testosterone, and is a mesomorph. So you have to have those 4 qualities to, quote, bulk up. You have to. You have to have them all 4. So if you're that person that says, I don't want to bulk up, it's like, well, okay, you're probably not. Check it off the list. Now what happens is sometimes, the people who are afraid of bulking up go to the gym, they start working out, which is great, and then they kind of start overeating, justifying themselves. So it's like, I'm gaining weight, I must be bulking up and getting more muscle. No, you're gaining weight because you're justifying that you should be eating more because you're going to the gym, and so I hate to break it to you, you're really gaining fat. That's what's going on. And then the other thing that happens sometimes is in the same case, and sometimes it's inflammation. So sometimes when you start working out, you're just gaining inflammation, and we see that sometimes. So, the bottom line is that we don't actually hypertrophy or gain any muscle until after 6 weeks of starting a workout program. We get stronger through recruitment in the first 6 weeks, meaning our body learns to adapt. It sends the right muscle fibers to the right areas to strengthen. So your body is simply getting quicker. Your brain is getting quicker at stimulating the correct muscle fibers. That's called muscle recruitment. That happens in the early stages of working out, like the first 6 weeks. So you do get stronger, but it's all from recruitment versus hypertrophy. So again, we'll have people say, well, I gained 4 pounds, but I'm assuming it's muscle. And like, I wish, I really wish we can say that you gained, 4 pounds of muscle in 3 weeks. I mean, everybody would take that who's trying for that, but number one, that didn't happen, and number two, that's an impossibility. And by the way, a realistic amount of muscle to gain in a year for a pretty good sized man is like 14 pounds tops, and that's in their prime. So it's not nearly the amount of muscle we think we can gain anyway, okay? So, Casey's statement had a lot more to do with trying to dispel some of these things that discourage women from going to the gym because of the added value of working out, and she can't be more correct. I mean, the only thing that cranks up your metabolism is adding muscle mass, getting a little bit stronger, working out. That's what does it, getting stronger. And too many times, because of the fear of bulk, women are going to do a boatload of cardio. They're going to diet, and they're playing that chasing the calorie game, which doesn't work, and it's going to lead to a lot of discouragement, when in reality, cardio, absolutely. We all need at least 150 minutes a week at the very minimum, which is 30 minutes 5 times a week. For sure, we all need that. But it needs to be balanced out with strength training. Don't fear the bulk. And guys, don't get discouraged if you're not getting bigger. It's probably not because you're not training right. It's probably because it's not in the cards. But here's the best news. Why did we all originally want to work out to begin with? Why? Why was it when I was in junior high school and they started a weightlifting club, did I join it? And then talk my mom into buying me one of those, plastic with cement weight sets, with the little skinny bar and the bench, so I can bench press in my garage every day, which I didn't know better. And I was so excited when I first benched 100 pounds, and that came after efforts of having to roll the silly thing down my chest because I did it without a spotter. But the bottom line is, I just gave you the answer. We all wanted to get stronger, and that needs to be the goal of everybody's strength training routine. If you happen to be one of those lucky, blessed, whatever you want to call it, people who can gain a boatload of muscle by looking at a weight, great, you're in the 1%. So probably not going to be you. If you get bulkier while lifting and you're a woman or whatever and you don't want it, it's check your eating habits, more than anything. Or if you do happen to be that woman that can really, really gain weight because you have all of those, 4 genetic components, and don't get me wrong, they're out there. I mean, obviously, if you look at the CrossFit games with the bulkier women lifting a lot of weights, and you look at some of the power lifters, of course. I mean, but they're elite. I mean, they're out there, and what's funny is they love it. But, if that's not your body type, and it never has been, it's not going to turn into it. I mean, you're not just going to go from, a 5'8", 110-pound woman and then bulk up to this 135-pound monster. I mean, not gonna happen, as much as some people would actually wish that it did, but it's not gonna happen. Your body type around 18 for women, and probably 21 or less for men. So, or even really before that, but that would be the peak that you absolutely know. So, but the goal should be, you want to get stronger. I've been doing this, as I said in the introduction, 25 years or more, and what I see is the people that continue to stay strong in the gym, regardless of their age, but definitely as they're getting older, have better ADLs, activities of daily living. And they're training with me now in their 90s, late 80s, and they're still doing what they want to do. They're still going where they want to go. They're still having the lifestyle they want to have. Why? Because they stayed strong. And then I know people out there that have all these physical ailments, all these physical problems, and they get to the point where they literally can't get out of a chair anymore. Look, call it what you want. That's called weakness for whatever reason. That's a squat. When you're sitting in a chair and you can't get out of the chair, that's the same motion as if you're exercising and you're doing a squat. It's the same freaking motion. If you can't get out of a chair, you don't have the strength to get out of a chair. Granted, there are diseases that impact that. My mom suffered from dementia in her last couple of years, and prior to that, she fell and she broke her hip, and and she basically had to stay in a chair. And so I get it, and she's somebody who stayed strong. So I get that these diseases can impact your strength levels, absolutely. But why do you think it's so imperative, once our senior citizens that we should be taking care of have accidents and lose strength, that we continue to try to get them stronger? PTs know this. They want to get the people up out of their chairs and get their strength back, because that's the only way they're going to have a normal life. I would argue that prior to that ever happening, that we always focus on strength. It's the thing we can control. It's the thing, like, if we went to the gym and forgot about, how much, body mass we're going to gain, or how much fat mass we're going to lose, or, are we going to get swole, or are we going to get toned, if we forget all that, because that's like a consequence of so many different actions. That's like a consequence of our diet. That's a consequence of our genetics. That's a consequence of our sleep, Working out and getting stronger is a consequence of our actions. You get it? Like, that's the one thing that if you go to the gym and, you did a little bit more than you did the last time, whether it be a couple more reps or a few more pounds, you had a successful workout. You got stronger. I mean, we always track numbers at the gym because it tells us a lot. I mean, we'll have people come to the gym and they'll do the introductory exercises in the beginning, and they might do 20 pounds on a machine, and to them it felt heavy. And then, a year later, they're doing 5 times that, easy, doing 100 pounds on the same machine. Like, really? I used to do that? I used to do that little? It's like, yeah, let's put it back and see the difference. And then you feel the difference. You're like that, and you're like, holy crap. Well, how does that translate into everyday life? Again, getting up out of a chair is a squat. If you can't do a squat in the gym, there's going to come a time that you can't get up out of a chair. It's pretty simple. It's the same exercise. Pushing like you're on a chest press or a bench press or a dumbbell bench press or a push-up, whatever, pushing your body up like that is no different than if you fall and put your arms out and catch yourself. If you don't have the strength to lock your arms out and not allow your head, your face, your neck to hit the ground, how is it any different than a chest press? So, all of these movements we do for strength are normal human movements that we're trying to make stronger. Muscles move bones, which are attached to joints, which I should say bones come together to form a joint. Okay, the muscles move those bones that form a joint. So if the muscles are weak, the joint is weak. How many times do I see people get hurt playing golf, get hurt running, get hurt whatever, and then they think it's their weight training, and we just shake our heads and be like, dude, the weight training is what protects you from getting hurt. Like, okay, so we're like my old friend, who I even forgot who his name was, who screamed that the beautician went off on somebody. I could maybe be tempted to go off on somebody when they start telling me that they got hurt in the gym, because I'm like, ugh. Some gyms maybe, but even there, it's like, it's just not nearly as likely as getting hurt somewhere else. It's like, whole chapter in my book, There's a Method to the Madness, was spent on the importance of weight training to keep you injury free. I can't stress it enough. So, Casey, great thought, and you are absolutely a strong person. You did 100 pounds in the pull down today for 16 reps. That is freaking strong, and your focus on that is absolutely where it needs to be. And then when we take care of the other things, because that's what the gym is for, get stronger. When you focus on the other things, like your diet, and I'm not talking specifically to Casey anymore, to everybody, the diet and the amount of cardio, those other things start to happen, But we need cardio. We need strength. There's 9 other forms of exercise, by the way. That should be a little question I leave you with to figure out what they are. But there's 9 other forms. But the big 2 that we all need is cardio and strength training. We need it. We need it for our health. We need it for our wellness. We need it for everything. So I'm going to wrap it up right there. And that was a very good question, one that I'm passionate about. And, hope you enjoyed it. That's all I can say, right? And I want to thank our sponsors, Jonathan and Lynn Gilden. They are the owners of Gilden Group Realty, of Realty Pros. They can be reached at 386-451-2414 or at the Gilden Group. These guys have sold over 100 million in sales, and they have the most 5-star reviews in the area. It's great when you got a husband-wife team working, man. They just can work together and help you out. And, they're trying to help me locate a an office to purchase because that's where I'm at. I want to kind of grow the business a little bit. So, they're awesome. And, I've said it before, I'll say it again. They're fit, they're strong, they work out, they do cardio, they do strength training, they do both, they do all of it. And I know I can sound like a broken record, but I will continue to stand up on that hill and say people that take care of themselves are going to be better at their work, and they do. So, again, if you want somebody who's going to be aggressive in the real estate industry and really help you find what you're looking for, give Jonathan and Lynn Gilden a shout out. Again, 386-451-2414. And until we meet again, be max fit and be max well.